12 games. We got 12 teams participating in 6 games, and we got to go through some things, and we got to go through our picks because like we did our previewing of this, and we had a lot of we were really like I was really feeling the winners energy. I'm like, I'm in Vegas. I'm like, I'm only picking winners. Like, let's go. And I actually didn't choose a draw. I know you chose a draw, and we'll go through all these right now. So let's actually start with that. Let's start with like how there was a weekend of ties. There was a weekend of draws that took place for some of these teams. Let's start with this first one. Let's start with the Friday matchups. Racing Louisville FC versus Washington Spirit. This one ends in a 1-1 draw. And Lisa, I remember when we were previewing this match, talking about this, and this is going to echo similarly probably when we also speak a little bit about the Pride and Angel City. But we were talking about, I was like, something about the second half of the season, in particular when it comes to these, bottom half of the table teams. And I had said in the preview that if either one of these teams kind of walk away without a win or a draw, it's gonna maybe not cause for like ringing the alarm, but it's definitely not gonna. It's gonna feel like a missed opportunity. And here we are with these two teams having to split the points with about 6 or 7 games in front of them now. They're running out of time.
It is not at all what we expected. We had actually both picked Washington Spirit to win this one, and during our preview. Before our preview, I looked at the standings and I looked at the points and I looked at what games both Racing Louisville and Washington Spirit had left. And if either Washington or Louisville won this match, they would have moved into 8th place. Because it was a draw between these two sides, they both drop. Now Racing in 9th and Washington Spirit in 10th place. So they really dropped the ball on this one. But for Racing Louisville, it's kind of the same old game for them. They're coming off 2 back-to-back 1-1 draws. This was their 3rd game in 8 days. So a really tough stretch for Racing Louisville. But it's later in the game that Racing Louisville is able to kind of come back into this thing. I mean, and when you look at the last match against OL Reign in the midweek last week, they scored later in this game. And then against Washington, the goals didn't come until later in this game. And they end up going up early over Washington, and then they concede a goal to Ashley Hatch. Nadia Nadim, the goal scorer for Racing Louisville in this match. She was back in the starting lineup for Kim Bjorkegren's side. Washington had the exact same lineup that we saw last week. So we're seeing a little bit more consistency from Chris Ward. But as I mentioned, Ashley Hatch got a goal. So she was back after being out due to injury. But something I was really impressed with throughout this match for Racing Louisville, Kirsten Davis, forward for Racing Louisville, sitting between the center backs, just buzzing on the ball, off the ball constantly. This player looked like head coach Kim Bjorkegren told her, you're going to get 60 minutes today. Do with it what you can, and we'll evaluate from there. And that's what she did, because every second that she was on the pitch, she gave so much energy, buzzing all around, sitting between the center backs, getting those slip passes. She looked like the hardest working person on the pitch. Washington had opportunities. Trinity Rodman had a great header opportunity, 25th minute into this game. It was a great cross coming in. Rodman looking to get a header. Lund saves it. And as I'm watching this, I knew, looking at Katie Lund and Aubrey Kingsbury, it's going to be a goalkeeper battle between these two sides. 4 and 3 saves, respectively, between those two. But this should have been a goal by Trinity Rodman in this 25th minute. It was a cookie cutter header that she had no defender on her, and Washington should have gone up in the 25th minute. They don't. Hatch comes on in the second half, and 52nd minute is the opening goal from Nadia Nadim. Kirsten Davis getting the assist, well-deserved for her, who was just buzzing all over the pitch. It was a really good build-up. And then in the 64th minute, Hatch gets past Lund near post on a shot that maybe didn't look as impressive as it could have been, but hey, it's a goal. It's an equalizer at the end of the day for Washington Spirit.
I still, you don't want at any point, any points lost, right? In this second half. And while maybe you're looking at that, on the Spirit side of things, you're like, hey, we didn't lose.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't lose, but so we didn't get all 3 points. And I think the areas in which you're sort of highlighting and talking about kind of having those missed opportunities. Maybe that's a little bit of a theme in this weekend for certain teams. And I would absolutely consider this to be this game with Louisville and with the Spirit. I just don't know. I just don't know if there's going to be enough for either of these teams moving forward, considering the teams that are actually in front of them, who are sitting in that upper half of the table. I think when you're breaking things down like mathematically, like, there's that whole concept. It's like, oh, mathematically, it's like, we're still in it, but you're entering this phase where it's like you're going to start needing a lot of other things that are actually not in your control to sort of start going your way. And I think when it comes to talking about these games that are featuring the 2021 NWSL champions, I think that's like we're going to probably be paying attention to that a little bit closer than maybe some of the other the bottom half of the other table teams. But split points between Racing Louisville and Washington Spirit. But listen, that set it all up, didn't it? It just set everything up for the remainder of Friday. There was NWSL action after dark. It was Portland Thorns FC versus North Carolina Courage. And this one also a draw, but didn't disappoint. It was a wild affair with a 6-goal scoreline, 3-3 between the Thorns and the Courage. I think maybe we how did we not predict that? I'm almost a little bit disappointed there. So it's like these two teams are not unfamiliar with sort of having these types of big score lines. There have, Courage have at one point been on the the side of sort of, having the lopsided goal score and delivering that to Portland. And there have been those moments before in the past. But I think even though we're talking about another match here where there's some split points, I mean, obviously you have two different teams in two different areas of the table where they're going to be looking at a little bit differently. You got the Thorns who are like, hey, okay, we'll take it, moving on. And you've got the Courage still at the bottom of the table here and just really struggling, even with their games in hand to try to generate those wins.
Yeah, I mean, for these two sides, his game was on Sportsnet, CBS Sportsnet, and for some reason, teams show up when it's a TV game. And this match between Portland Thorns and North Carolina Courage had everything, and a 3-3 ending in it. So North Carolina now is back-to-back weeks 3-3 ties. So they can score goals. We know that the Courage can score goals in a variety of ways. Heck, just find Diana Ordonez's head and you'll get a goal. And you'll get a goal.
Game plan, draw it up.
But defensively, they're struggling a little bit. And that was really the theme to start this match. We knew Davinia was back in the starting lineup for North Carolina. Caroline not there. Sophia Smith on fire again. She went away with international duty and now she's back with club. And I think she thrives a little bit more with Portland Thorns than maybe she does with the United States at this point in her career. But because of this split points, Portland jumps to the top of the table for the first time. San Diego is not at the top of the standings, but it is Portland Thorns at the top. But 2 goals for Diana Ordonez on the night, 2 for Sophia Smith on this night. But the opening 7-8 minutes of this match really set the tone for how this game was going to go because it was chaotic. There were defensive breakdowns on both sides of the pitch. Sophia Smith could have had a chance for Portland very, very early in this game. Then there was a giveaway as Portland looked to build out of the back. Dabinia picking it off. She gets a shot off from just inside or just around the edge of the 18-yard box. That goes wide. That could have been a huge opportunity. Then around the 8-minute mark, Sophia Smith capitalizes again, gets her 10th goal of the year and puts Portland on the board first. It was a defensive mistake by North Carolina. Sophia Smith picks it off. There's 3 defenders on her, but it's a great finish running at the back line. The defenders have to backtrack, and she just attacks the front defensive foot of the 3 defenders around her, creates a little bit of space for herself, and then finds the back of the net. And 24th minute of this match, Portland goes up again. It's now 2-0 over North Carolina. And I thought that the game would change at this point. I mean, it was a bit of a chaotic moment in front of goal for Portland. A shot comes in. It's a half save by the goalkeeper for North Carolina Courage and Casey Murphy. And then Morgan Weaver, easy tap in for her as she's there on the follow-up. At this point, it could have been a reset point for Portland Thorns to kind of say, let's be a little bit more defensive here. We've still got Sophia Smith, who can dribble through players up top, and Christine Sinclair, who can rip shots like that, who caused the second goal, actually. But that didn't happen because as this game went on, second half action begins, and North Carolina, they turned it on. They found a new gear. Diana Ordonez, she gets a header from a corner kick. Incredible job in the 60th minute. It's now 2-1 at this point. And then another header on a great cross from Ryan Williams for North Carolina, 72nd minute. That header was beautiful. But back-to-back headers and back-to-back goals from the rookie in Diana Ordonez. She ends the game with 7 goals on the season. But there would be a little bit more. Smith gets another one, and then Jaylene Daniels gets the goal at the end of it. I mean, action from start to end. 85th minute was the final goal coming from the North Carolina side to finally equalize it in the end of it all.
Yeah, and minute 8, right through minute 85, the first and final goals in this one. But I love that you bringing up the goal total for Diana Ordonez here, because we're talking about a rookie, kind of maybe putting together a little bit of a dark horse, season here to try to compete for that golden boot, perhaps. This game, what comes out of this game is, and maybe we'll talk about these two performances specifically, whether from Smith and from Ordonez. So we've got Smith now exiting this game level with total goals this season to date, with 11 goals, tied with Alex Morgan at the moment, coming out of this game with her 2 goals. And then you've got Ordonez with the 7, like you mentioned. So I just really enjoyed, when you're neutral sort of watching these types of games and you're seeing like all of this kind of wild chaos kind of unfolding between two teams who have got kind of that familiarity with each other in terms of rivalry and histories between each other. I love that there are young players in these matches who are creating new storylines within these kinds of rivalries, right? And I that was my favorite thing sort of watching out of this. I was like, Sophia Smith is just continuing her maddening 2022, and you've got the rookie in Ordonez sort of trying to put together, a strong season with a Courage side that's been struggling in the regular season. So I just that was sort of my kind of favorite thing to sort of look at between these two individual players for these respective teams and kind of coming out of this one. But again, we're talking about two different teams in different areas of the table. So, getting the point for a team like Portland, you're like I said, let's pack it up, let's go, let's move on and look ahead. And then if you're the Courage, you're just like, you kind of maybe have a little bit of the same energy, but again, you're just
they need like points. North Carolina needs points.
This is 3 straight draws for them.
Yes. And they're scoring goals, right? It was 2-2 and it was 3-3 last weekend, and now this one is 3-3. It's almost like the defensive side of it is too open. But then you look at this game against Portland Thorns, and the 2 goals from Sophia Smith were fantastic. There's 2 defenders on her in the first goal. The second one, she does get a bit of space in between the center backs, and it's a great ball through by Olivia Moultrie to set up Smith. But they're not giving up easy goals in that sense. Portland's a very good team, and Portland showed that they are a very good team, even against a North Carolina side that can come up huge in set play moments, because those corner kicks hurt Portland. 2 corner kicks, 2 goals, set pieces, crosses coming in, and can't really defend against a player like Diana Ordonez. But yeah, I mean, the name right now is North Carolina needs points, and these ties are not going to help them.
Draws. Let's talk about the final one of the weekend. Orlando Pride versus Angel City FC. look, this was the last game of the weekend, and I said, of course, it's going to deliver. And it definitely had some very curious moments as well throughout it. I think there were some folks who were also kind of like, I can't believe that happened, sort of watching this again in the in the airport, then sort of also seeing people's reactions to it as well. This one 2-2 for the draw. So we had three draws, a 1-1 between Racing and the Spirit. We had Thorns and Courage 3-3, and then the Pride and Angel City give us the 2-2 draw. Look, this one started out a certain kind of way. I think maybe sort of taking a look at the beginning of this game, Lisa, maybe you sort of have the feeling like, okay, well, like maybe this is going to shake out a certain kind of way.
I mean, Orlando Pride has been incredibly impressive with what they can almost pull out of the woodwork and what they can turn on and what they can do, especially when you look at a player like Julie Doyle, who subbed into this match, and she was a game changer for Orlando. She just did so much for the Pride. But you and I both picked Angel City in this match, and this game was wild. So it's interesting the way I wrote this rundown that we talked about Portland, North Carolina, and now we're talking about this one back-to-back wild games. Allie Riley, she gets on the board first.
What a goal
for Angel City, an incredible goal. There was an own goal in this one. Carrie Riccaro scoring in back-to-back games for Angel City. But 40th minute, Allie Riley, she scores a banger. She comes late to the play out of the left back role. She strikes it. It's so well done. Erin McLeod doesn't even stand a chance on this incredible shot. But then 64th minute, Julie Doyle is in the game. She subs in for Darian Jenkins, who started this match for Orlando and had great opportunities. Frankly, Darian Jenkins had a few opportunities that she should have scored. There was another header, almost similar to the Trinity Rodman header, that Jenkins just had too much time. She heads it down and it bounces over the post. That should have been a goal. I mean, when I was rewatching this game and kind of looking at the stats, it probably could have been like 3-2, even 4-3 towards Orlando in the opportunities that they had. But Julie Doyle, she equalizes for Orlando, and then Riccaro scores in the 72nd minute to give Angel City the lead. This was assisted by Paige Nielsen, center back for Angel City. And then Orlando just kept pounding and knocking on the door. Carrie Abello had a fantastic game playing in the flanks for Orlando, sending really great crosses in. And that's how Orlando ends up equalizing. They force an own goal on a great cross from Carrie Abello. It was fantastic. And it's a forced cross with defenders running towards their own goal, and Angel City taps it in, and Orlando is able to close this one out. But that final equalizing goal came around the 90th minute, maybe 90+1 perhaps. But there was still 4 or 5 minutes of stoppage time left, and it was chaotic all over the pitch. Both sides wanting to get another goal in this one. And this was also the end of the Sunday matches that went back to back to back to back. They all happened at the exact same time. And this was such a great way to end the weekend. But Angel City and Orlando, they split these points, which frankly, not great for either of these sides as they stay in the middle of the standings. And this was a chance for them to jump above that playoff line.
Yeah, didn't happen. And we talked about that in the preview. I was very intrigued by this matchup. It was a number 7 versus number 8. You know, you're looking at two teams that are just like sitting outside of that upper half of the table window. You know, this is the point of the season where, quite frankly, anything can happen. And I think when we eventually talk about the other game between Reign and Houston, we're talking about, again, maybe missed opportunities here. At the very least, maybe trying to get yourself some separation from other teams in that bottom half of the table as well. So I was like, yeah, we got a number 7 versus the number 8. You know, there's just about a game separating them. And the first goal in this one, Lisa, hearing you run it back down here, just, sort of thinking about it a little bit. The first goal coming in this one, it took about 40 minutes for that breakthrough to come happen. So sort of watching everything beforehand, like kind of leading off with this game, which is why I said like it just sort of felt like maybe the writing was on the wall. It's like, oh, is like this one gonna end in a draw? I didn't know what the scoreline was going to be, but we definitely saw some things in those opening 40 minutes, I think, before the goals eventually started coming, where I was just like, well, I said there's some things happening here where we're not actually seeing the breakthrough, but not necessarily for lack of effort, but also just the not getting it behind the net. I really enjoyed the second half in this one. I liked seeing, I don't know if I would call it like level of urgency type of play, but I liked seeing, someone like Simone Charlie trying to get on the ball, forcing the issue, trying to make things happen in a game like this. She was someone that I was looking for to kind of maybe have a little bit of a, next kind of level game. And I really liked her performance in this match. She was one of the players that was sort of, kind of collecting the team in their last game. That was that sort of last minute kind of loss, and not happy. One of those players who was not happy about kind of shutting it off, a little bit at the end there. So I was like, yeah, Simone Charlie's going to like carry this energy and, sort of, keep it moving in this game. And I know when we did the preview for this one, Lisa, we were talking about how like we didn't have the availability report and like who are we going to see on that Angel City side that was going to have that type of performance against their former club. And we thought like, would it be someone like a LaRue or an Emsley? Turns out it's Ellie Riley getting the banger in this one, but not how you want to finish a game, right? And an own goal and Paige Nielsen having to come back in off of getting some treatment off the pitch. I think maybe you just at this point, if you're Orlando Pride, you're trying to just go and target. It's just forcing the issue here in this one. But again, another one of these games that ends in a draw where I'm with you, Lisa. I don't think it does much for either side here. Looking ahead into the next week, it was unfortunate, quite frankly.
It definitely was, and when you look at the way that Angel City kind of crumpled under the pressure at the end of this match, and Orlando continued to rise to the occasion, even with their substitutes coming in. It's impressive. It's been really impressive to watch what Orlando's done. I know we talked about it in our preview, what would happen if LaRue was playing for Angel City, and she was not available for this match. Yeah. So in Orlando, this game, truly impressive. I think Orlando Pride is one of my like dark horse teams right now that are fighting for a playoff spot, and they have a better shot and a better chance of doing it than teams like Washington Spirit or North Carolina Courage. I think we could see Orlando Pride making the playoffs at the end of this.
I don't know if I would go that far. I don't know if I'm going that far. But
we're talking about the math here, Sandra.
I appreciate you putting the take on record. I will say this. I will agree with you in the sense that I don't think anybody predicted that at this point in the season, Orlando Pride would be higher in the standings than a team like the Washington Spirit. 100%. I'm with that 100%. This is not, I don't think, where anyone saw at least that second half of the table right now. Are the Orlando Pride going to make the playoffs this year? I don't know if they've shown me enough.
They have a very, very tough upcoming schedule. Orlando has an incredibly tough next few weeks. They've got San Diego, then they have Gotham, then OL Reign and Portland Thorns.
That's a tall order. That's a tall order.
That's a tough 4 games to end out August and then start September, and they end with North Carolina, San Diego, Orlando, with Racing Louisville thrown in there. So like their second half schedule right now is really tough. But at this point where Orlando is picking up the points that they are, getting ties over teams like Angel City that are doing well in standings, their goal differential, that's something that they've got to work on, and they've got to get a win because they're 3 in a row draws. And then of their last 5 games. Yes, of the last 5 games, 4 of them have been draws for Orlando. So can they push that extra step and get wins over the next 4? I think they'll beat Gotham. I mean, we'll talk about that. I'm getting ahead of myself.
You're right. I mean, but I like it though. You're looking for more fuel for your take here. And I will say again, I'm not going to go that far to agree with it or maybe like double down on it, but I do think it bodes well for this team maybe looking ahead a little bit, I do think that perhaps Orlando can be the team that we saw out of Kansas City last year. We saw the Current start playing spoiler. We started seeing their team go out there, get results, become this kind of second half of the season team, bottom half of the table team that was kind of frustrating to play against, where maybe on paper, where you're looking at the rosters and the depth, you're saying, okay, team A should be beating this whatever Orlando Pride team. And it didn't necessarily happen for that Kansas City Curd side last year. They were, again, playing spoiler for teams who are in that playoff push. And I will say that maybe that will be my take. I'm not going to necessarily be like, oh yeah, Pride are going to make the playoffs, but I do think they might be the team that is going to be frustrating to play against down the stretch of this second half. I do appreciate, I think, what they're looking at. If they are looking ahead to next season already, I don't know if they're going that far yet, but I think you've got some players that you're looking at and you're kind of circling and you're saying, yes, we want to try to continue development here, and here. I think Abello had another one of those really good games. Doyle, obviously, Clough has been really a bright spot for this team. And these are all young players that you could sort of maybe look at and kind of go ahead and perhaps sort of build upon into next season. But I don't know if they're there yet because, again, they're in that 8th seed. And like you said, maybe they can play spoilers.
We'll talk in a month, Sandra. We'll talk about this team in a month and we'll see where
we've been recapping the standings at the end of each month. So we'll see where the Pride end up at the end of August.